Gary, it's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing? It's great to have you on the podcast today, Gary. How you doing? Can you hear me all right?
I'm very well, thanks, Adam. Yeah, thanks for inviting me along.
No, you're very welcome. Yeah, I just kind of thought I'd start off by, kind of asking you how you kind of got into what you do, because I see you own a business called the Mind Zone, and you
hmm
do a few other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Mind Zone is predominantly based around golf and golfing mindset. So, um, if you're a golfer, you probably would have heard of a guy called Dr. Bob Rotella, American golf psychologist, worked with some of the greats. And more and more sports people, not just in golf, are getting very much into mindset, sports psychology. So yeah, I dreamt up the Mind Zone a few years ago. Have a great deal of fun with it. Get some great results. I've also got another company, IMD UK, which goes back and I use mindset in all of that as well, Adam. But that's based on sales, negotiation, bit of health and safety and fire, and all based around in terms of mindset, NLP, hypnosis, mindfulness, meditation, call it whatever you want. Resilience is now the buzzword we're using. So, yeah.
No, that's great, and it's great that you've kind of like gone into like two kind of well, you've got two companies that kind of work within that kind of same kind of area, isn't it? That kind of like niche where you can like focus on mindset and performance, and they can kind of
Mm.
probably interlink as well.
I think, yeah, it's important. To me, mindset, whatever you're doing, is vitally important. I can't think of anything out there that you're not using your mind for. So if you wanted to be a top salesperson, you've got to have the right mindset to go out and do that. If you want to be the best sales negotiator or the best manager, you've got to have that mindset to want to do it. So it's probably quite an easy job for me to do because every job, every client, every customer, etc., that I speak to, I know that they need a great mindset.
Mm. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think like mindset is kind of where it all kind of starts, isn't it? With like pretty much anything and everything, really, isn't it? Like when we first connected, you was talking about we was talking about golf and sports, and we were saying that like I've worked in a golf club,
Mm.
um, nearby, and I remember seeing people who were stressed, and there was this kind of weird atmosphere sometimes, especially during competitions,
Yes.
and it was almost like you think, well, isn't golf meant to be enjoyable? And you see all this seriousness, and I understand it's quite serious, but it's like there was that kind of frustrated about it. There was like losing that kind of enjoyment factor in that
Yeah,
sport.
absolutely, Adam. It's, I mean, I speak to a lot of people, certainly amateurs, and I'm even going to say professionals. You know, golf isn't life or death. You know, if you go to join up with the army or the navy or one of the services, and you're put into a conflict situation, yeah, the decisions you make could result in you and others a life or death situation. Golf ain't like that. You know, we do it for a bit of fun, um, but it's incredible the amount of pressure that people put on themselves. Again, not just in um, golf, but any sport, and I want to say life. And given the year 2020, people sadly are putting so much pressure on themselves, or they're having pressure put on themselves. But of course, and this is something I always say, it's really up to you what you let in and what you sort of say, no, I'm not even going there. You've got to be, one of my little lines I use is, if you're not in control of your mind, someone like me will come along and happily control it for you.
Mm.
And I don't do that from a power point of view, and I'd like to think I'm doing it for the best interest, but there's a lot of people out there, media, government, etc., that are inflicting things on us, and it's up to us how we choose to respond to it. Um, Two things that you can change. Most people realise it's only one. Is what action you take. You know, you can change two things about you: your physiology and your psychology. So the way you act and the way you think, and that's all there is to it. And if you're not happy with results or doing whatever you're doing, If you're not getting the results, you're not progressing, or whatever it might be, Adam, then you've got to change one of those things, psychology or physiology.
Mm. Yeah, no, exactly. I think they're really good points, and it makes me think back to was it Tiger Woods a while back? He started working out, and he noticed that he was performing better in his golf. I think it was Tiger Woods or someone like
Yeah,
that. He was
well,
doing
I mean,
certain exercises.
the latest one in the golfing world is a guy called an American guy, Bryson DeChambeau, who was a successful golfer, but during lockdown he spent most of the day in his gym, really bulked on a lot of muscle, and he's hitting the ball a phenomenal distance at the moment. Now, Adam, that's going to go one or two ways in the golfing world. There's a lot of controversy, a lot of talk out there at the moment. Is it right to do? Isn't it right to do? The fact is, he's done everything within the rules of golf. So therefore, you've got to argue, yeah, he's doing the right thing for him.
Mm,
Um, he's hitting the ball sometimes sort of 380, 400 yards. There's other golfers, professional golfers, saying, well, I can't get anywhere near that. Well, it's got to be a level playing field. They're saying, well, it is. They have the opportunity, if they want, to go down the gym, bulk themselves up. Strangely enough, Bryson DeChambeau will not win every golf tournament, and you mentioned Tiger Woods, as Tiger Woods in his heyday didn't win every tournament, but he won enough. Um,
mm,
and yes, you've got to have skill. Whatever you're doing, you've got to have some skill. But so much of the real achievers, the successful people, are the ones that have that very focused mindset and know what they want and know how they can pull on those resources that we've all got within us.
mm. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think like it's so true, isn't it? Like a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of controversy of people, working out and that kind of thing. And I think well, like it's whatever works for that person, isn't it? And I think like I can't because the thing is they might have bulked up, they might hit the ball and it might go, a
Yeah,
different way, and you
it's
can't just say because someone's bulked up they've got more of an advantage because I don't
yeah.
know, it's
Golf is absolutely it's a game of consequence. So Nick Faldo also said, I think when he was captain of the Ryder Cup team, he said golf is a game of fractions. You hit a ball off the club face 1 or 2 degrees out from where you wanted it to go. If you're only hitting it 10 yards, then it's not going to make much difference. But if you're going to suddenly hit it 350, 400 yards, that 1 or 2 degrees makes a big, big difference.
mm,
So golf is certainly a game of consequence, but again, it's the mindset of these elite athletes. People have always said, "Oh, he's phenomenal." Yes, it is, um, but everyone's got that ability to have that mindset if they choose to. If they
mm,
choose to, and I know a good friend of yours and mine, um, Mark Dawes, who you've done a couple of podcasts with in the past. One of Mark's stock phrases, and I use this myself, when people say, "Do you think this will work?" Mark turns around and says, "I don't know. Let's see. Let's go and
mm,
find out." And people say to me on the golf course, if I'm doing a mind's own session, or if I'm doing sales training, negotiation, whatever it may be, and they say, "Do you think this will work?" And I turn around, I bring my little inner Mark Dawes out and say, "I don't know. Let's go and find out." Because
mm,
that's the only way you're ever going to find out. But sadly, Adam, so many people don't go and find out because they've got the
mm,
fear factor of what if it goes wrong,
mm,
rather than what if it goes right. And you won't know it's going to go right until you try it.
mm. Yeah.
Um, so it's a bit of a catch-22 for many people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think like you said, that's a really good like way of looking at things, isn't it? Why not just kind of find out, like, you're not going to know unless you try. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think a lot of times, people ultimately kind of, got that wiring. We've all got that wiring, that negative voice sometimes. And I think
mm,
it's kind of being in tune with that kind of voice and kind of not letting that kind of negative voice kind of, do you know what I mean? Kind of diminish That.
I know exactly what you mean, Adam, but we're not born with that.
Mm.
You know, we're born with the sort of fight or flight. But
Yeah.
we're not born generally to fear the dark.
Mm.
We're not born to fear ghosts or spiders or wasps or whatever it might be. That's all learned behaviour. And where do we learn it? Well, generally we learn it from the people we're surrounded by. So from a
Mm.
very early age, we're surrounded by our parents, you would hope. You go to school, preschool, playgroup, etc., and you pick it up from other people. And if you see someone in the summer, as soon as a wasp flies in, screaming and running away, you soon pick up, well, that must be the thing to do. This
Mm.
wasp must be an evil thing. Now, I'm not saying go and play with wasps, but you
Yeah.
know, someone once said that it'll only hurt you if you annoy it. And I've never yet met anyone who's got a hobby of annoying wasps.
Mm.
But we learn this behaviour to be fearful of things. And I honestly believe it holds us back in our lives. You know, I'm not saying be reckless and gung ho and let's go and do this. And, you know, we're living in the middle of strange times in 2020.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot of opinions out there, there's a lot of fear. And I know people that if you're walking down the street without a mask on, they cross over the other side of the street. I know other people that walk down the street without a mask on. Don't really don't tend to worry about it. Um, but where is all that fear coming from? Media, belief systems, and your little peer group, the people you're mixing with.
Mm.
That's where it comes from. But it's yeah, you're absolutely right. It's such an interesting area.
Yeah. No, definitely, and I agree with you. And I've kind of like seen that when I worked in restaurants and hotels. You know, like in the
Mm,
summertime, you get wasps flying around, and people. You'll see some customers, and they'll be chilled, and they'll just be drinking their
yeah,
champagne or whatever, and you know, they're just kind of like, might go like this, or might just ignore it or stay still. And some people just freak out, and it's. And I used to be that person who used to run away and kind of freak out, but then I was like, well, I think I saw something. It was like, well, if you freak out, you're getting hotter and they're attracted to heat. So you're going to get more wasps kind of coming towards you. So it's kind of like, doesn't help anyway. But I think it's important, like you said, how to recognize, you know, how you react to things and, you know, why you're doing kind of like what you're doing, if that makes sense. And
mm.
like you said, a lot of people kind of react to that fear, don't they?
They do come back to it, and I think the art of having a happy life is knowing how to overcome that fear. And I'm not going to sit here and convince people that it's easy to do, but it is achievable.
Mm.
Um, and you know, people have different goals and motives for existing. Um, you will have heard this, I'm sure, many times, and I'll ask people on a training course, um, what makes you happy? And do you know what most of them tell me?
What's that?
Money.
Mm.
Everyone apparently wants to be a millionaire or win the lottery. And I turn around and say, will that make you happy? Oh yeah, yeah, it'll make me happy. Why would it make you happy? Well, I can buy things. Okay, so you just won 20 million on the lottery. What are you going to buy? I'm going to buy a house. Okay, £2 million. You've got £18 million left. What are you going to do with it? Oh, I don't know. And you tend to find that money doesn't make people happy. It's what you can do with that money that makes you
Mm.
happy.
Mm.
And time again, you can go to different parts of the world and you can see people with absolutely no money at all, and yet they're happy people. And sadly, I also know multi-millionaires, and there's a lot of celebrities, multi-millionaires, that have taken their own life um,
Mm.
because they weren't happy.
Mm.
So, does money make you happy? No, I don't think it does. Maybe that's just my mindset.
Mm.
Um, you know, it makes things comfortable, and I get
Mm.
that. We've got bills to pay, we want a roof over our head, but there's a lot of fear at the moment with job losses and redundancies and
Mm.
that sort of the way that the economy is going. People are fearful of what's going to happen.
Mm.
Um, I also happen to think there's going to be a massive amount of opportunities coming out of
Mm.
this. You know, And if you think about the fact that we're sitting here now, if you go back in your life 24 hours, we're actually a day closer to realizing those opportunities than we were yesterday, Adam. We've
Mm,
spoke for 20 minutes so far, and we're 20 minutes closer to those opportunities realizing themselves than they were when we started talking.
mm,
Now, it's just whatever mindset you choose to adopt.
yeah. No, I completely agree with you, and I think like as well, like I think like money and that kind of thing, and what success is a very personal thing to each person, isn't it? And
Mm.
I think, like you said, like you could have a lot of money, but um, it's like if it's not kind of aligned with your like belief system, you know you're not going to have be able to hold on to that money because you might feel like you're I don't know. Not some people, you know, like who win the lottery, like you said, spend all of it
Yeah,
because their belief system. They might feel like they're not worthy of having that money. They might not kind of know the value of it. And a lot of people sometimes, you know, they're just buying. I think we've all done it. You know, you buy stuff and then you know you've got that kind of short term kind of happiness. Oh, this is great.
yeah,
I've got this new jacket, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, I've got 4 jackets now, or whatever it is. And I think like it's kind of I think with money, like you said, it does help you do certain things, and it is that kind of sense of stability, you know, and reassurance that you've got like a base there. And I think that's important in life, isn't
yeah,
it, to have that kind of base? But I think with money, I think like if you're continually buying things and you're doing things, and I think over time people are going to realize that it's not actually those things that are making them happy, and it's much deeper than that, isn't it? And
absolutely.
you know, like I
Absolutely.
said, you hear a lot of celebrities who go downhill, even though they've got a lot of money and a lot of status quo, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Adam, there's people in history, and I like for really simple things, very simple things. I'm a simple person, you know. I'm not one of these that is what you would regard as a genius, but I know what works for me, and I'd like to
Mm,
think I know what works for a lot of people.
mm,
And I remember many years ago, John Lennon, one of the Beatles, sadly shot unbelievably 40 years ago in December.
wow.
40 years ago, 1980. Um, but one of his quotes was when he went to school,
Mm,
his teacher said to him, "What what are you going to be when you grow up?" And John Lennon apparently said, "Happy."
mm,
And his teacher said, "No, no, no." She said, "You don't understand the assignment." And he turned around to her and said, "And you don't understand life."
mm,
And I love that quote from John Lennon. You know, why do people do anything? You would argue it's to become happier, to make them
mm,
happy. Why do I play golf? Because it makes me happy. Why
mm,
do I want to get better at golf? Because it makes me happy. Why do I
mm,
want to do this? Why do I want to do that? Because it makes me happy. Why do people go on holiday? Why do people go and eat certain foods in a certain restaurant with a certain group of people? Because it makes them happy.
mm,
And for me personally, everything you do should have the ulterior motive of ultimately making you happy.
mm.
Now, I'll confess, I'm not a huge lover of paperwork.
Yeah.
I really detest paperwork. You know, put me in with a group of people that we can have a chat and a training session, and I love it.
Yeah.
Tell me I've got to sit down for a day to write a course or whatever, and I struggle with it.
Mm,
But I've trained my mind now to say, okay, I know it's a necessity for me to go and do the training, to be in front of people, to do this.
mm,
That's part of the route that I've got to take. So
mm.
I train myself, right, dedicate, I'll go and do that. Because I know there's an end result that will make me happy.
Yeah.
Does that make some sense?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can relate to that in some way because it's like you said, you know, with the course side of things, you know, in able to do that course to have those connections, you've got to kind of do that back end
Mm,
stuff to have that. And it's that kind of you can't have that without this, and you know, this
yeah,
without that, can you? And I think
yeah,
I kind of sometimes like it, you know, like with emails and chasing up things. Sometimes, you know, you have a lot to do, and you're like, oh my god, there's so much, and it's kind of like if you have that kind of mindset towards it, it's going to drag. Whereas
yeah,
you kind of see it. Well, if I don't respond to X, Y, Z, I can't have X, Y, Z here, kind of thing.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, let's put it into an analogy here. If you're going to build a house, why do you want to build your own house? Well, because I want to design it and I want it to look beautiful and I want a nice garden and I want this and that. Okay, well, you've got to design that house then. You've got to put foundations in that no one will ever see, but you need to put good foundations in there so that you can
Mm,
build the first course of brickwork and you build it up. And now I don't like building houses, but I like living in a nice house.
mm,
So it's a means to an end. Ultimately, that should come out that you're going to be happy in whatever house you build. That's a little
mm.
analogy there for you. I mean, you can make
Yeah.
analogies out of anything. Um, but I would just like to see a world with that people could realise that they have the ability to change within.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, I'm happy to come along and I'll help them, etc. But everyone has that ability to change um, if they want to.
mm,
If they want to. And I'd love to see a world with people that are more confident, that have less fear, that
mm,
have more self-esteem. That, if you like, turning around after a course, and people say, "Do you know, I feel more confident, got more self-esteem. I've got this, I've got that." The
mm,
more of that I can do, that then makes me happy.
mm.
So I'm quite a selfish guy. I'm doing all this to make me happy, if you think about it.
but it, but it's like the thing is you're getting that satisfaction from it, but yet you're providing value at that same time to other people, so they're kind of taking something from it, aren't they? And they're going to get happy. They're going to
Yeah,
kind of benefit and develop themselves. And I think you kind of got to kind of have that or have that kind of um, place in mind, haven't you, in order to kind of to be able to provide that? Because it's
yeah,
like I think it's very obvious if someone's doing something and they're not providing value, or they seem to be providing value, and they're doing it for like monetary needs and not that kind of happiness, isn't it? I think that's what
yeah,
I recognize, sometimes because I think, in the past, many years ago, I probably, wanted to get my needs met and that kind of thing. And then over time, you kind of, like you said, you kind of learn about what makes you happy, and that value is important,
yeah,
that you provide.
yeah. And I think it's important. People often misunderstand me, Adam, when I say money's not important. Because as you've highlighted earlier, and I hope I said this, yeah, I understand we need some money. You
Mm,
know, for us to live, we want a roof over our heads, we want a nice bit of food on the table. But I don't urge people to go out and find stuff that they love doing. Um,
mm,
I know far too many miserable people in the world
mm,
that when I say to them, and I probably wind them up a bit, I say, how long have you been doing your job? Oh, 40 years. And I wind them up. I say, you must really love this job then. To do it for 40 years, you must love it. And they say, I really hate it. I said, well, why are you doing it? That's all I
mm.
know. And then I just put a little one at the end. I say, well, don't worry. I said, you've done it 40 years. I said, you'll be dead soon.
Yeah.
And they look at me as if to say, well, really? Yeah. Yeah, you haven't got to do this for eternity. You will die, and you haven't got to do that job then.
Mm,
And it worries me really the amount of people out there that are doing stuff that they hate doing.
mm,
Um, I'm very fortunate. I've always loved what I do.
mm,
If I don't like it, I change. I've done various things in my life.
mm,
Um, as I look back on my life now, I start to realise why I did certain things in a certain way. Did I always get it right? Absolutely not.
mm,
But the only way I was going to find out if it worked was to go and do it. And
mm.
some things work and some things don't. Um,
Yeah.
there we
No,
are.
I agree with you, and I think like like what makes someone happy is, like I said, a very personal thing, and what makes you happy is going to be different to the next person, and like me as well. But I think, like you said, people need to try different things out, and it's like the only way almost. I mean, I'm 26, and luckily, I found something that makes me happy. But prior to this, doing this and coaching and things like that, I've tried different jobs out, different courses, and I've had that ability where I kind of listen to myself.
Mm.
I'm doing it for myself. I'm not listening to what my parents are saying or anyone else.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing as well. Listen to yourself, isn't it? And being able to make those decisions where you're like, no, I can change my mind. Let's try X, Y, Z.
yeah,
Um, and I feel sorry for people who are kind of stuck in that place where they're doing something they don't enjoy. But like you said, it's possible, isn't it, to do that thing you don't enjoy, but then on the side do something else, and then when you find that, leave that. And I think a
yeah,
lot of people are scared, aren't they? They're scared to go out of their comfort zones, and I think that's kind of normal to feel scared.
yeah, yeah.
Once you do it and you've done it for X amount of time, it's not scary anymore. It's like
It, um,
it's
it's
like
not.
when you probably first play golf. It's like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah,
Who's watching?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you've hit the nail there. It's about finding what makes you happy. If I go back in my life, when I left school, Adam, my father was a builder. He wasn't a bricklayer, wasn't a tradesman. He was a foreman on a building site, and he used to work horrendous hours. He'd be up probably 6 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember as a young child, he would come home um, probably about 6 in the evening, fall asleep, have his dinner, fall asleep in the armchair, and that was it. But he used to love his work. He had this mindset. He used to love his work. And even when he retired from building, he still went and did odd jobs, etc. Sort of local gardening jobs, putting up fences, a bit of concrete, and what have you. But I remember him always used to say, he said, "Whatever you do, don't do what I'm doing." He said, "It's a hard, unless you really enjoy it, it's a hard job." So that made my mind up. I didn't want to be a builder. And when I left school, people told me, bearing in mind this was back in the 80s, they said, get a job in banking or insurance. It's a job for life. Okay, well, I wasn't particularly educated, but I thought I'd have a go for this. So I started working in an insurance company, 9 to 5. And my job was to move a pile of files from there to there by the end of the day. When I come in the next day, Adam, there's another pile of files there. So I'd move them from there to there. And it was mind-numbingly boring. And at about 5 to 5 most days, you look at the clock and you put your pen down, you put your files away, and you walked out. The time I was 18, I found myself a job in a pub, and it was the best thing I ever did. I loved working in the pub because it wasn't like work. All your mates come down to see you. You chatted to people. It was fabulous. And in the end, I was doing sort of maybe 6 nights in the pub, working during the day in the office, 6 nights in the pub. And for an 18, 19-year-old, I had quite a bit of money because I wasn't going out spending it. So when I did go out on my night off, I could afford some nice places, which was rather nice.
Hmm.
Um, I suddenly fell in love with the hospitality trade, and it was about seeing people. And again, you make connections in life. Steve Jobs said, "You can't join the dots of life up looking forward. You can
Hmm.
only join them up looking back."
Hmm.
Why did I enjoy the pub trades and hospitality so much? Because it was social. It was
Hmm.
seeing people.
Hmm.
And I then went from there, got a job with a brewery, selling beer. What a dream job! I think I was 21 years old at the time, and I was going round into pubs, clubs, restaurants selling beer, knowing that the next week when I went back, they'd sold that beer and they wanted to buy some more. Happy days.
Hmm.
So that was my sort of brief career history. Got into sales training, then moved totally into training, and I discovered a long time ago how powerful the mind was, and the
Hmm.
fact that if you smiled at people, most people would smile back. And I got told I got a really cheeky smile, a cheeky grin for a youngster, and so I started smiling at everyone. And people started smiling back, and you're miles away from me now, Adam, but you're smiling on your face. It's quite weird.
Yeah.
Um, so if you can connect with people, you can then start to influence people. And I used to sell.
Hmm.
Uh, I won loads of stuff as a salesperson. But then I got into training. I love the training aspect of it. Um, so I moved totally into training. And since those days of 9 to 5 in an insurance company and being in a pub selling beer and what have you, I've really understood how the mind works. Got into NLP, neuro linguistic programming, um, met some wonderful people along the way. Hypnosis, which still fascinates me. I
Mm,
love hypnosis. Everyone's got the ability to go into trance whenever they want. Um, but people find it's a weird old thing. Mindfulness, meditation, all these things. You start banning these words about, and people, oh no, I'm not into all that sort of stuff.
mm.
So we're going to brand it as something else, and I'll call it something else, and it'll work.
Yeah,
But yes, it's all good fun. It's all good fun.
yeah, no, that's it. And I think like it's great in what you said about that experience, the experience that you had, like when you was like a teenager and things like that. And I can definitely relate to that. Like I'm pretty extroverted, like as a person socially, and I think like when I fell into restaurants when I was like 16. My dad's a chef,
Mm,
and I started going into waitering, and like you said, there is a it almost like when you're kind of confident in it and you kind of find your feet, it's quite enjoyable because you're meeting all different people, and you're able to
yeah,
deal with situations that you probably won't encounter in an office.
yeah.
Like you said, with chefs, with people who might be
Well,
drunk or pissed off and that kind of thing. So
let's be
you're
honest,
dealing,
Adam. Most,
yeah.
most, most chefs that you know, most chefs that I know, are raving mad. It's a prerequisite for being a chef. And I know if any of my friends that are chefs listen to this afterwards, they know exactly what I mean. You've
Mm,
got to be a certain animal to be a chef,
yeah.
but highly skilled, highly talented people.
Mm.
Um,
There is definitely that to it. I mean, we had where I used to work in one place. We had like six head chefs and four managers in the space of like 4 months because
mm,
there was a lot of pressure and it was during summer. And we had people on agency coming and going backwards and forwards. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of things you need to deal with. But I think in that trade you can grow so much
mm,
because you're literally thrown out your comfort zone. And like you might have two people who don't turn up to work and it's you and one other person. I remember it was me and my two colleagues because the manager got sacked and we was basically kind of co-running this hotel, running all over the place. And I think there's that, that's when it was hard, I kind of thought to myself, well, I'm meeting all different people every
mm.
day. And that's kind of what kept me going
Yeah,
because
yeah,
people are interesting. You just don't know who you're going to meet or who that person knows.
absolutely. And it's incredible when you work in. I mean, I know how hard the hospitality industry is. Incredibly long hours. Sadly, they're getting a rough ride at the moment, in my
Mm,
opinion,
mm, mm.
from the government and the support and what
COVID, yeah.
available. But in terms of the hospitality, we used to finish a shift and we were absolutely worn out. But do you know what I used to love, Adam? The doors are closed, we've finished glass washing, etc., and we just sit round a table and have a beer
Mm,
and chew the fat, just talk about anything. And that was a lovely, lovely time. You were
yeah,
absolutely worn out, but it was fantastic,
yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that's what I miss about it as well. There's
Mm.
that kind of side to it, whereas most other jobs is like, yeah, done, cheers, see you. And whereas that is like you're kind of like a family unit.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I was just gonna to like round up as well. Like, do you have any favorite books that you like to read? Any favorite books?
Um, well, of course, I mean, I've got to say, my good friend Mark Dawes, Quantum Thinking is an essential read.
Mm,
There's certainly in the golfing world, there's any of the Bob Rotella books are really good reads. Um, Mindset, well, I mean, there's just Google something on mindset. We talk a lot
mm,
about growth mindset. A guy that does a lot of presentations, or was before COVID. A guy called Steve Head. Steve is worth looking up.
mm,
A good guy. Um, but no, there's some really good speakers out there,
mm,
and I'm always happy to go along to conferences, webinars, Zoom meetings, whatever, because I'll always pick something up from somewhere that I can
mm,
use. Why do I pick it up? Because it makes me happy. You
mm,
know, it all
yeah,
comes back to that. If I can find a little story that I can use, that I can pass on, it makes someone else's life happy. Brilliant, happy days.
mm, mm.
Yeah, that's
No,
how it all works.
yeah, no, exactly, and it's so important to do that, isn't it? To kind of to read good content and kind of consume the things that make you happy and going to make some kind of difference to your life as well.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, do you have any role models professionally or personally, like, or mentors, like growing up or even now? Would you say?
Well, growing up, I suppose, I mean, in the golfing world, um, as much as I admire Tiger for what he did, Tiger Woods, Sevi Ballesteros,
Mm,
because he was different from everyone else.
mm,
Um, and his visualization, his mindset. Again, anyone that's into their golf, Google some of the Sevi videos. They're quite unbelievable. But
mm.
he just had that attitude of I want to go and have fun, go and enjoy it. Rory McIlroy, a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I still think talent wise, skill wise, Rory's got it. Mind wise, I think is sometimes lapses.
Mm,
So I'd love to do a bit of. If Rory's listening to this ever, Adam, I'd love to do a bit of work with you, Rory.
yeah. Yeah.
No problem at all. Um, I think in life, and strangely enough, Adam, I did a podcast last week with a friend of mine. He's or was an Olympian, went to the Olympics 5 times, and we were talking about who your idols were, and it's normally people within your profession that were really successful.
Mm,
Um, I suppose when I look, both my parents, sadly no longer with us, but both my parents laid those foundations,
mm,
from a very early age, and I never grew up with pressure of you've got to do this or you've got to do that. Subliminally, subconsciously, call it what you will, both of my parents always said to me when I was growing up, I don't care what you do for a job, as long as you enjoy it.
mm,
And I think those words um, sort of resonate with me even in my life now. And I say my friend who I spoke to last week, I
mm,
said, who's your motivating factor? He said, my mum. You've got all these superb um, celebrities, successful people, but often you would hope it comes down to the grounding and the education that your parents gave you from a
mm,
very early age. And then I hope I pass that on. My Both my kids are grown up now, but you hope you pass that on so that they can then pass it on.
mm. Yeah, no, I truly believe in that, and I love that, and I agree, and I think it's like kind of like that base of where it starts, isn't it? As well, how you
Yeah.
kind of are as a person, and being grateful and looking up to the people who kind of instilled that kind of bit of wisdom,
Yeah.
in you as well.
Oh, absolutely, without doubt, without doubt.
And where can people find you on social media or your website, that kind of thing?
Right, I've got a couple of websites. One's down at the moment for maintenance because I've used this last lockdown to update it. But
Yeah,
I've got a couple of websites which if I email over to you,
yeah, I
Adam,
can put it in.
you can maybe put some links. I'm on Facebook. I'm
Mm,
on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. You know, I'm on the phone. If anyone,
yeah,
and I'm happy to give my number out. If you want to phone me up,
yeah,
and you want to speak to me, I'll speak to you.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's about because when I say you, whoever's listening to this,
Mm,
whoever wants to speak to me, um, if I can solve a problem for you, strange enough, you'll also solve a problem for me because
mm,
it'll be something that you give me that I'll learn from it.
mm, mm.
So, as I say, selfish. I'm
Yeah.
only doing it for me. I'm only doing it for me. time.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome, Gary. But I'll definitely put your content and your details in the bio of this, and
Yeah, fantastic.
I'll definitely share what you're doing and and all that as well.
Excellent.
No, you're
Excellent.
welcome.
And
It's
maybe we do a version or a podcast two
yeah,
um, in a few weeks or a few months or whatever, and we go on to chapter two then.
yeah. No, of course, I'd be happy to.
That'd
Sounds
be
good.
brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, but
Superb.
no, yeah, Gary. But no, have a great day, and I wish you all the best in what you're doing.
I will do. Thanks very much indeed, Adam. You take
All the
care.
best. You too.
Thanks.